We're commemorating what happened at Peterloo 203 years ago. It was desperate, it was appalling, it was rank murder by the state against the working class of Manchester who were standing up for justice, for democracy, for peace, for hope. Many of those were people that had come home from the Napoleonic Wars to find, far from coming to a country fit for heroes, they came to unbelievable levels of poverty and oppression against those that organised. And it's remembered for all of that, and it's also remembered for the brilliant lines in Shelley's poem, The Mask of Anarchy. He wrote it, it's a very long poem, so I won't read it all, I won't in fact read any of it, because my great friend Ken has already read some of it, the important lines from it. But what happened in Manchester that day has lived on. Who remembers the Dragoons as heroes? Who remembers those that were killed and those that were deported as heroes? The latter are always the case. The former were those acting on behalf of the state that killed those innocent people here in Manchester that day. We remember Peterloo, and it's managed to get its way into most school history books. But there were other occasions like that at that time of political firmament in the early 19th century. In 1821, the Hesmondhalgh Massacre took place in Shropshire. Called the Hesmondhalgh Massacre because when the Dragoons were brought in to try and control a strike of 3,000 miners, the only weapons that the miners had were cinders from the ironworks where most of them worked. They were miners and iron workers, and they threw cinders at the Dragoons. They were defeated, they were denigrated, and one of them, Thomas Palin, was executed for leading a miners' and ironworkers' strike in Shropshire at that time. That wasn't so far away from here, just down the road in Shropshire. We remember them, and we remember 10 years later, William Jobling, a miners' leader near Jarrow, who led a strike of miners who were opposing the reduction in their pay and the lengthening of their hours of work. He was executed and his body carved up on a gibbet and put into an iron cage and dragged by a team of horses on a cart around every mining village around Jarrow as an example to the others, in the same way that the Shropshire miners and iron workers were campaigning for better conditions for children working in the mines. The only victory was the children's hours of work were reduced to 12 hours per day. That was the brutality of those times, and all the oppressive legislation, the Combination Acts, the acts against free dissemination of the media were all a part of that time. Our children need to understand this history of this country and of the working class movement that brought about those changes. The Tolpuddle martyrs came afterwards, and they are quite rightly remembered for the wonderful brave men that they were. So we have to understand all of that when we commemorate Peterloo and all the others, we stand in solidarity with those today that are opposing job cuts, wage cuts, speed ups, and reduction in working class living standards. That's why today we send our absolute solidarity to the RMT, to ASLEF, to the TSSA, and all the rail unions for what they're doing. We send our solidarity to the Communication Workers Union for what it's doing for postal workers and telecommunications workers. We send our solidarity to the UCU, to the NEU, and all those in the education sector who are balloting now to take action in order to protect jobs and living standards. And we send our solidarity to the health workers in all the unions, Unison, Unite, the Royal College of Nurses, and all the others. Because the common thread going through all of those is there's been 10 years of wage control, there's been 10 years of reductions in living standards, and now those living standards are being eaten away by 11% inflation and by the looming terror And it is a looming terror of the rise in energy and other utility bills that's coming down the road. And so it is about how we present some kind of radical alternative. I'm not very interested in regulating monopolies that were sold off under Thatcher and Major at cut down prices. Mail, rail, water, energy companies, telecom companies, all of which were sold under value, all of which massive profiteering took place as a result of it. And water companies that every year waste more water than could fill Loch Ness as they export their profits somewhere else and leave us to pick up the pieces of burst water mains, shortage of water supply, and pollution of our rivers. Hundreds of thousands of sewage discharges last year. So what's the answer to this? Is it regulation or is it public ownership of those organisations? It's got to be public ownership. It's got to be public ownership of all those what are actually utterly natural monopolies. And so this summer is to me a summer of determination and a summer of great hope. It's great hope because we can mobilise in our tens of thousands in support of all those groups. And I tell you this, when I've been on the picket lines with the rail workers and others, there was a time when you go on a rail workers picket line, you'd get a lot of abuse from the travelling public. Not this time. Not this time at all. So many say, well actually, you're doing it for me. You're doing it for me, you're helping me, and I in turn will help you. So the Enough is Enough campaign is a very important step forward in all of that. But don't think it's going to be quick, and don't think it's going to be short, because it won't. We're going to be in for a long haul from this summer of determination, and I think the winter will be an interesting time. When the horror of those energy bills flows in, the 4,000 bill that's coming to most households, and the cold winter, the high prices, the shortage of food, and the shortage of ability to warm the place. That's what's coming down the line. But we draw strength from the support and solidarity we've got. And if I could just be so bold as to quote a little bit of Shakespeare. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious by the son of York. Our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Now is the winter of our discontent. So, this cost of living crisis is a crisis not caused by the alleged greed of wage demands, not caused by the BBC analysis that it's wage-led inflation we're facing. I don't quite know how they worked that one out. Since wages have been falling for the past 10 years, how can they possibly be blamed for causing inflation? But I'll tell you what is causing inflation. It's the greed, the profiteering, the payouts, the executive pay, the export of profits, the tax havens, and the tax avoidance, and the tax evasion. I recoil from nothing that we put into our manifestos of 2017 and 2019. Those manifestos were and remain about redistribution of wealth and power. That is the reason we were so brutally attacked, as Ken has pointed out. And so it is about supporting those in whatever struggle they're in. But it's also about bringing new members into our unions. Young people working in the gig economy, on 0 hours contracts, staring at a mobile phone, hoping they'll get a food delivery in the next half hour, hoping they can deliver it in time, not to be fined by their own company for delivering cold food. The brutality of the gig economy and those computer platforms that decide how workers work. We've got to do better than that, because those workers are going through exactly what building workers and dock workers went through in the past. Embrace them, bring them into our movement, make our movement bigger, better and stronger. It is our confidence and our strength that will bring about changes. But also look at other issues that face this world. The peace crisis, and and I totally condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I want to see peace there. I want to see peace around the world. And on the 15th of September, the Stop the War Coalition is organising a discussion meeting about this in Friends House. That is part and parcel of the whole debate we've got to have. The last thing I'd say about this is the world we live in. Unprecedented levels of pollution, unprecedented levels of damage to the natural world and the natural life cycle. And the answer, is it to hit working class living standards because people work in polluting industries? Or is it a green industrial revolution that invests in the clean energy of the future, that invests in the sustainability of the future, and an education system that encourages, excites and informs our young people, the better to empower them to fight the battles of the future. So we're here today to commemorate brave people who lost their lives. We're here to commemorate those that stood up for working class rights and living standards in the 19th, in the 20th and in this century, and in global solidarity and in opposition to racism in any form whatsoever. Refugees are not our enemies, not our competitors. They're our friends as fellow human beings that should be supported in their life needs. So as we finish today, solidarity and strength. And acts of solidarity make a difference. Those that do nothing in the face of great oppression around the world allow that repression and oppression to continue. Those that stand up and make a stance means that we win that battle, and in winning that battle we're emboldened to win so many more. Earlier Stella spoke about the bravery of Julian Assange. He is guilty, yes, of telling the truth. Stand by Julian Assange, and in standing by Julian Assange, we're standing by all the other truth tellers around the world. Solidarity, support, friendship, and above all, hope. Hope for the future. Thank you very much.